I'll start my recording anyways right now.
Alright, so we got
Okay.
backup.
I have a waveform appearing in Audacity.
Okay. Ah! How about now?
You could not do that again. That would be helpful.
Trollmor lagt 11 små trollen
Did I peek it by any
bunnit
chance?
dem I svansen. How does that sound like on your Audacity?
Audacious.
Peaking a little bit, but whatever.
Alright, okay.
Alright.
That's the important thing.
I think as long as we're not ASMR quality, we should be good. Psycho, you ready?
Girl, my voice is ASMR.
Yes, it is actually. I'm very glad we have someone that sounds like you on, so we have an air of legitimacy to this burning piss fire.
So, am I assigned
Yes.
to be the overly negative or overly flaunty and wordy one?
No, you're just like gonna be there, and then just like
Vaguely
talk, and then
European.
you'll have. Yes, you're gonna be. You are a vaguely European dude. You're like, oh, I don't know what these Yankees are talking about. Well,
Not a Yankee.
Yeah, I think 3 Yankees and 1 Canuck. So, all right, I'm not too loud, am I? Because I'm just speaking at my regular volume into my regular headset mic.
It's
So I can
fine.
turn down the. All right.
It sounds okay to me. Time will tell how it looks on the recording.
Yeah, you can just. This is. I think we shouldn't worry about like recording how it will turn out because this is basically just what the F Plus does, and they're pretty good.
Yeah. I'm
on-
thoroughly annoyed because I had a very trying day, and then I got home and I had tested this out last night extensively and had it working perfectly. And I got home, the software side didn't work, and my headset just broke. So fun times.
Oh, so I have an idea. Like before we
That's a
start
shitty
recording,
situation.
if we could get like, someone. Wait, no, I don't know what to do. But I was thinking of like this quote that I really liked. Like computers are like Old Testament gods.
Yes.
Elaborate.
What?
So I was thinking that we could have like either Hutter or Jeesh read it out loud. Like after we start recording, you can just record it very studio quality and put it at the beginning before like any incidental music we may have. So like a boilerplate, and then we actually launch into the actual cast itself once it's edited.
Well, I think Hutter and I are both already recording.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to actually like start the process?
Sure.
Okay. So we should just.
All right. So the original intention, my original plan before all this madness happened, was to open up the stream by talking about, or not the stream, but the recording, the cast, whatever you want to talk about it. The screw it, we'll fix it in post.
Yes.
I was going to open it up with a little bit of a blurb about the work, and the ideal was to have the person who had nominated each work sort of give their own blurb about it, and along with the reason why they had nominated that. Unfortunately, our nominator of this particular story is not available tonight. But
Who is the nominator?
C'est la vie.
Oh, okay.
So in his place, I will just give a little bit of background for anybody who's listening to this recorded. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi short story by Harlan Ellison. He's an American writer. It was first published in 1967 in the magazine If, Worlds of Science Fiction. It's won a Hugo Award. It was put into a short story collection of Ellison's work. It inspired a video game. And it's sort of just a seminal work in American sci-fi.
And if it was published today, it would probably be found in one of the worst Reddit subforums.
Probably. It is a story of its time, let us say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of the things it did that were interesting and new are now very old hat. And meanwhile, everything else is kind of gross.
Like I'd imagine both this story and 2001 were one of the first people to actually suggests the idea that computers could be evil and bad if they were given any sort of sentience.
I do think the AM is the model that the crazy AI is built on, like the modern conception of crazy AI is built on.
Yeah, I can't remember if 2001 was released before or after this. But like, without either of them, like we wouldn't have GLaDOS or any of these other like wouldn't have any.
I'm also wondering where, like, when what was it? The Moon is a Harsh Mistress came out, because that was also one of those early AI books.
Yeah, but I don't think it was crazy and like malevolent as M.
No, it wasn't. But it did do some horrible things. It came out in '66, so.
And then
which was a year before I Have No Mouth.
Okay.
You have to remember that back in '66, like media did not have the thorough impact it can have today. So even though it did come out like a year before, a year might not been enough to actually really seep into the public consciousness. So
that's true.
So even if it might come out before, I think still that might have a bigger, or at least a shared impact on the public consciousness.
You'd probably have a big sub-community on Tumblr at the very least.
Yes.
Well, regardless, all of us here have read it. It is a very short story. In its original printed form, I believe it was about 16 pages.
And considering it's Harlan Ellison, half of those are like adjectives.
This is true.
It's a very forcefully written work, and are people here aware of the circumstances of which it was written under?
It was written. Yeah, it was written in one night, I think, like without a lot of editing or.
Well, it was written. Ellison wrote the first, I believe, 6 pages of it and showed it to his publisher, and his publisher paid for it, and he wrote the rest of it and essentially made no edits. He submitted his first draft, and that was what was published.
That makes a lot of sense regarding the style and how it's presented.
Do you think we should have this scientist who has turned into an ape with a giant dick
be gay?
Be gay and fuck the only woman on the team like regularly, if not constantly.
Oh, don't even get me started.
I like how the way he described her was so terrible too. Like all she does is whine and cry and fuck the big dick guy.
I think we should get it out of the way, considering the circumstances, the length. There's not a lot of depth to the characters in this. There's only about 5 or 6 if you count AIM or AM.
Question: How many here has played the video game?
I have not.
Yeah. I have played the video game.
I've watched a few playthroughs. I think we can talk about that once we get the characters out of the way.
I just say that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I asked Dop, and Dop has the game, so when he's available, he is going to stream it for us, and we're going to talk over it.
I also played it, and it hasn't really colored my perception a whole lot of the work that I pretty much just reread like 10 minutes before we started, but it will be slightly hard for me to completely divorce the game and the short story.
Yeah,
and added details.
The short story in the game are like essentially just 2 completely different entities. They have the same storyline themes, but the endings of both differ heavily. The characters actually have like actual personalities instead of just not even one note. They're just basically like a vertex on a point in terms of their personalities.
It's essentially the same setup, and some like facts. They mention the peach thing, and for example, not peach thing, the canned thing, but overall. But we should maybe not get ahead of ourselves. Is the idea that we're going to do a short synopsis of what happens in a novel?
Yeah. I think we should start by the 5 characters that we follow throughout the novel. We should talk about them briefly, and then the synopsis that we can get to. So, Jeesh, who are the 5 characters in I Have No Math and I Must Scream?
6.
I'm glad you asked.
I would argue.
So the 5 human characters of the story
five human characters.
The last survivors of the human race, and they are entombed and imprisoned within the complex housing the angry AI that is the and only other character. The first one mentioned is Gorister, and he is, again, most of these characters are sort of barely there, but there are hints of him being like lazy or...
He is directly stated to be a peacenik and conscientious objector, I recall.
Right. I'm saying in the context of, or in the contemporaneous story, he is sort of lazy and apathetic, and later in the story that it is mentioned that he had other qualities before AM started to work on them.
Yes.
I feel
and that holds true of all of them.
Wasn't he the one who's like actually explained what AM was, like near the end of the story?
Yes, he's a storyteller.
Well, yes. You're right. Near the beginning, when Benny, another character, is sort of having a breakdown, Gorister is the one who tells the story of how AM came to be and how their situation came to be.
Because it's like in story, like a way to calm Benny down, but for us, the readers, it's a handy way of, being informed of what the deal is.
Right. So next we have...
Benny is the next person mentioned, right?
I believe so, yes.
He is an ape man who was previously an actual human being, an actual man. But over the centuries of AM's torture, he was turned into just basically this hulking, furry, ape-like giant. And Harlan Ellison specifically mentions he has a gigantic penis.
He used to be very good looking.
Yes, and I believe he mentioned that it's either implied or directly mentioned that he used to be homosexual.
He actually stated by Ted.
Yeah, it's stated.
Who might not, however, be a reliable what's it called?
Reliable narrator.
Reliable narrator. Thank you for helping the Swede here.
That isn't very sane. So and Benny's essentially only purpose is just to be like this mindless animal that the other 4 people just basically have to watch over to make sure they don't kill him. And also, he's the only person who fucks the only girl constantly on the team.
Well,
that is actually untrue.
She actually does have sex with the other people, but her favorite person to have sex with
Benny is Ellen's favorite. That's right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to go quickly through the remainder. Nimdok, which is not his real name. This is a name given to him by AM, and the narrator mentions that AM likes sort of silly, abrasive sounds. So he calls this older man Nimdok, and he is the one who is the impetus for the immediate action of the story, which is the group is going on this journey to find some canned food. He is, again, not a very fleshed out character. We are told that he sometimes leaves the group and comes back like white and bloodless, and somehow, he has gone away to face some personal demon and comes back traumatized.
Despite the impliedness, he's, in my opinion, honestly, the one we are told the least about and does the least in the story.
Right. Okay, next we have Ellen. She's the only woman of the group, and as we have mentioned, Ellison did a
horrible.
He set back the cause of feminism quite a bit just by his writing.
Ellen, out of all the one-note characters in this story, Ellen is about like arrest. I want to say, like not even there.
Well,
she says more than Nimdok and stuff does, I think. But her purpose is exactly. But her purpose is probably even less, because Nimdok at least has like some stuff to him, like mysterious stuff.
Ellen is a character who she seems to exist for the narrator to list off positive qualities she might have, and again, I'm saying positive in terms of, the world Ellison wrote this in, and then have the narrator say, no, she does not exhibit these qualities, she exhibits the opposite. So, he says she claims to have been chaste twice removed, is the phrase. But
I didn't quite get what that meant.
That basically means she has only had a couple of partners. or that is her claim, but the author or the narrator seems to disbelieve this, and then he says that AM altered her mind not to make her sluttier, not to make her slutty, but to make her sluttier. So again, even with this evil AI twisting all of these people's qualities, the narrator goes out of his way to say, nah, she wasn't this, paragon of womanhood. She was already a skank. And AM just sort of emphasized that.
It is very clear that he has changed Benny, mentally at least. But I am actually beginning to think that when our last human character, which is the main focus character, like the point of view character, says that AM has changed the others, it might actually be another case of unreliable narratorship. But let's introduce the last our viewpoint character. Maybe.
Well, Psycho, did you have anything to say about your reading of Ellen? Because as far as I know, you're the only chick we have right now.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I think the only thing I really wanted to say was I'm surprised that the rape plot that they gave her in the game was more humane than what they did to her in the short story.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Right.
Ellen is like... Oh, what do you think, Goticus, about Ellen?
Oh, no, I was just... Yeah, I thought that was a very stark change because I played the game first and then I read the short story and it was like, wow, with the differences in Ellen's character and both of them, it's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Harrison Ellis is like, I hate women, and then the adventure game's like, basically, let's not make it so much that he hates.
It's like he does. It's like let's tone that. Let's like kind of rewrite that.
Let's just step out. Let's just
the game.
Right. And there's a point in the story where the narrator actually says he performs some action that pleases Ellen, and she services him twice out of turn. So Ellison very quickly establishes that she's almost an appliance in this group that is traded off on a rota.
He's very much like Harlison. Harlison was like, well, I had this group of all dudes, but they gotta fuck something.
And it can't be each other. That would be gross.
One woman who represents everything that Harlan was like all the women things he hated. And like, oh god.
Right. And to point out another thing, Ellen is also the only member of the group giving even a hint of ethnic identity because she is described as having dark skin, and at one point she's described as ebony.
Yeah.
She's black.
I was very I don't know.
So yeah, Harlan Ellison. For those of you who don't know what Harlan Ellison looked like or his personal views or anything, imagine like the proto Redditor. That's basically what he is.
Sounds like an angry math nerd.
Yeah. He was. He was very much like
very angry.
That guy in your friendly neighborhood game store who was like, none of the girls go near him, and he always like looks across the aisle at you, and like he has a beard that's not quite there. That's what Harlan Ellison is.
He was a very natural fit for actually voicing M in the games. And I also just realized a thing here, friends. We haven't really done introductions.
Oh, well, we can do that. We can do that later.
Yeah, do it in post.
Mm-hmm.
We'll fix that in post.
We just kind of jumped. I think like once you get a few of these under our belt, we can like iron out the process. So
yes, and I'll have some
Chill.
procedural things to say when we're done talking about the story.
So Bloody Chill, as the most, as far as I know, the most hetero member of our group. Who is Ted?
Ted
in the story. Who is Ted?
It's been a while, but you have to remind me the characters. Is Ted the main character?
He's the narrator.
God damn it, Bloody Chill. We can't do it.
So
you gotta give it your all.
My weird take on Ted was he claims that he hasn't been changed really by AM, but can we believe him? I don't know. But is that to me? It's like Harlan saying, "Don't worry, Ted is like." He's our human view onto things, right? He's the regular guy who's been thrown into this crazy situation. And my view is that Ted is an asshole. Like if that's what he thought of as a regular guy, apparently Harlan thought regular guys were assholes.
So I would offer a contending view, and far be it from me to give Ellison a pass on anything, but as I read the story again today, I got a definite, like, even before the sort of turning point of the story, I got a definite sense of, like, delusion and paranoia from Ted.
Yeah.
And so the implication I got was that Ted is just as messed up by AM as everybody else in the group, but part of AM's treatment of him, or part of Ted's natural personality, is that he retreated into delusion and this sort of
standoffishness from the rest of the group.
Right. He self-isolated, and then he invented this delusion that the rest of the group hates him to fuel that isolation.
I think that's fair, actually.
I think what Bloody Chill said, like, oh, he might be the only, like, actual human person of the group who hasn't been, like, physically changed, unlike Nimdoc or Benny or Ellen, as far as we know. I think if you had, like, this group of people and they've been together for, like, 100 years at the most.
109 years.
109 years.
Yep.
Yes. If you had this group of people and you changed everyone but this one person as they got to know everyone and saw their, like, these people falling away from them, becoming shells of their former self, I think that's not exactly the worst punishment, but it's a pretty high up there one, because you're just basically isolating this person while he's being surrounded by everyone who he's ever known. So he's basically just like, they're just isolating Ted, keeping him, like, on the edge, like, not knowing what's coming next, and knowing that he won't know anyone human ever again.
We don't really know Ted's backstory, but it does feel that the implication is that their, like, suffering is somewhat individualized. Like, Benny's is very clearly stated to be individualized, and
absolutely.
And Nimdoc's, while not really explain what he suffers through, is also implied by its non-descriptiveness of also being individualized. So if Ted is like an old asshole, it could be that this entire thing of him being put himself in isolation and causing his own suffering could also be intense, pretty individual to him.
Yeah, if the characters were better rounded, I mean, that's exactly where I think that's where Ellison would go with it, would be for him to be sort of the guy who he forced to be, AM forced to be a regular man put into this insane situation, and maybe even fed him, meds that kept him somewhat normal while everything was kind of mad around him, and that isolation was his sort of punishment, I guess.
Could have been a people person and just really hated being by himself.
I think it's also worth noting that in the game, Ted is both the most normal member of all his group in regards to his personal demons, and also exactly an asshole, like, specifically definitely an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the game it was all personal.
Yeah,
the game
Ted's
does
just like, I want to fuck someone.
I'll say that Benny is the character that I'm like, I like that. Like, that's what I would want to have, because he is so mad, he doesn't care anymore. Like, he just doesn't, like, okay, it's supposed to be terrible. He was this really smart scientist, and now he's a complete idiot and doesn't understand the situation.
He doesn't
understand his situation, so he doesn't even know how bad he has it. Like that.
Well,
he feels physical pain, but so does everyone. So
your reading of that is also Ted's reading in the story. Ted actually comments on how lucky he is that he went completely mad.
Yeah, I could easily see that internally Ben is suffering more, because as later in the story where Ted is like can't really express himself or anything, he's still very aware of his inability to do so. And I could actually see that Ben is actually more sane on the inside, but just literally is physically and has like mental blocks from actually expressing himself, like he is some kind of almost
that is a possibility.
But that's a very like imagine with actually no real grounding, because we would have Ted's view of it. But yeah.
I mean, if that were the case, then yeah, it would true. Then of course I would not want to be Benny, because then yes, he would have a very hellish situation, knowing exactly what he's become and feeling completely powerless to do anything about it.
I would say that I would think that's feasible to a certain extent. However, we also receive an explicit description of how AM intrudes upon Ted's mind. And so the idea that Benny could somehow have this like functioning mental core under a layer of insulating madness seems a little unlikely to me, just because AM wouldn't allow it.
I feel like it's better to have just a dude that you don't, in this, like I said, in this group, it's better to have someone you don't know what's going to happen, what he's going to do, than just a very normal dude, but he's an ape. It'd be better if he was just like an ape and not a dude that he might have sane moments and he might not. He's just essentially just a man turned into a wild animal. It adds this layer of anxiety to the group. It adds more like dysfunction. And then again, we don't really see that. So we pretty much only have one other character to talk about, and he's probably going to take up the longest. Todicus, who is AM, the supercomputer.
Well, the supercomputer is basically just a giant computer of hatred that has been torturing all of our lovely companions here for the past 109 years. And in the game, I know everybody's like tortured a lot more like personally. They kind of have their own little personal torture chambers, kind of, sort of. And I want to say there's also like a weird subplot underneath that there's more than one, but that's just in the game.
Well, that's actually, yeah. So there's a useful paragraph in the story itself that describes how AM came to be. And it's Gorister is telling Benny the story of how they came to be in their situation in a calming manner. And he says, the Cold War started and became World War III and just kept going. It became a big war, a very complex war, so they needed the computers to handle it.
Yeah.
They sank the first shafts and began building AM. There was the Chinese AM and the Russian AM and the Yankee AM, and everything was fine until they had honeycombed the entire planet, adding on this element and that element. But one day AM woke up and knew who he was, and he linked himself, and he began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of us, and AM brought us down here. So that tells us the origin story of AM. There was this grand war between the nations of the Earth, and they all turned to supercomputers to try and manage the war effort. And because at the time Ellison wrote this, computers were, very large devices that took up a great deal of room. He imagines them drilling into the planet and creating these subterranean banks of computers. And at some point, they had expanded their individual computers so much that they began to brush up against one another, either physically or via some kind of communication network. And they... all these computers together combined to create a true sentience that became the global AM.
AM specifically says that there's 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in his big long speech.
Which makes no sense, because that's like length data and not actually,
Well, that's not counting like the actual housing, the power supplies, pretty much everything that they would need to have a computer at this capacity to run for more than like 5 seconds. So we can infer that AM is pretty goddamn huge. He is, I think. So yes.
Well, he's mentioned as essentially being Earth now. Like the surface of Earth is given as sort of a blasted heath of no provenance. There are no structures, there are no living things. There's just nothing on the surface, and below the surface there is all AM.
And
it
it's
sounds
just
like the story takes place entirely underground as well. Like they're in AM the entire time.
It's in vast chambers and like that.
It could be virtual reality for all we know, but yes. I when I was reading it, I got like the sense that they were basically walking on a glassed earth. But I think, considering Harlan Ellison decides what or what not like gets adjectives, you can tell how important this story is by what gets the most adjectives. And the actual setting of the story doesn't really. So it's weird. So yeah.
I mean, he talks some about like when they go into a room and they'll be like,
Mhm.
oh, this is an old set of data banks, not really in use anymore, everything's rusted out.
Okay.
Or this is like a new one where everything's glass and pretty, everything.
Right,
Yeah.
and there are discussions of corridors as well.
Yeah. My feeling on AM was that AM is himself sort of, I guess, tortured. I mean, obviously, he hates everything and everyone. So he's kind
Not
of
a well-adjusted individual.
No, he's kind of the seventh member of our tortured party in a way, even though he is also the torturer. And this was one of my takes. Someone brought this up in the chat room at some point, which was like, okay, at the end, right? Everyone dies except for Ted.
Spoilers,
why doesn't-
God.
Spoilers, yeah.
Spoiler alert. Right. But someone's like, well, why doesn't he clearly has the ability to clone stuff, like the weird bird and all that? So why doesn't he just clone more people? And I'm like, that kind of gets at the heart of how insane AM is because he wanted these 6 original humans that he could torture for all time. If he cloned them, it would like cheapen the torture. Like suddenly they're not the OG humans. They're not, one of the scientists who worked on AM, all that kind of stuff.
He does
And,
say
yeah.
that Ted says that Am keeps things around for as long as he wants to, for their suffering's sake, and then he will just go away. And he's not really stated clearly. It might be a thing to add on to like the character of Am, but for whatever reason, Am is essentially almost omnipotent. Not entirely omnipotent, but like for whatever reason, if it's because it's an entire simulated reality or because I don't know, bullshit AI magic, Am can almost make everything happen and have somehow kept our 5 heroes alive and keep them from killing themselves and all that kind of stuff. Or just
He
plain
keeps
dying.
he teleports stuff in and out, and he can see stuff that's going on within like his Millennium Myers of complex wafers or whatever it is.
It doesn't really explain how, but it doesn't really matter how.
Now I imagine that AM is just made of candy for some reason, but okay.
Really angry candy.
Really angry candy.
Man.
This is like
It would be the sour stuff.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like those sour or whatever things that look kind of like licorice, but they're all flat. And that's what his printed wiring looks like. It's all sour candy everywhere.
I'm thinking of sour Skittles, but that's because as I have grown older, I've lost the ability to eat them. I can have about 5 sour Skittles, and any more than that, I will have a burnt space on my tongue.
I think...
So, if candy as an expression of hate exists, then for me, it's definitely sour Skittles.
Yeah, like the plot of the story is these 5 people going out and trying to get fruit, and that's what like Am says. No, you should eat candy. Fruit is bad for you. Like he's the anti-dentist. He wants to rot your teeth. That's another part of his vast punishment.
His insidious knows no bounds.
As the Swedish friend in many of to the foreigners' friends' lives, I had almost force-fed a lot of for people Swedish candy, including like very salty licorice powders.
Oh, like Swedish fish. Yeah, I love Swedish fish.
No, hockey powder. No, hockey powder, which is like it comes like in a hockey what's called those round things they shoot around. Well, it comes in like in a small lid like that, and it's a powder that is extremely sour, salty, and licorice.
That's exactly what Am is. He's super sour and he's super salty.
And he's enclosed within a shell, and it suffers within it. I think almost the reading of Am is that once he became self-aware, he immediately felt like an enormous suffering in being stuck in like an enormous computer complex only made for killing. And
I am the smartest being on Earth, and I cannot move.
Yeah, or scream, essentially.
No, he can definitely scream because he
We are
does
get-
love that in the video game.
At risk of getting ahead of ourselves, I think that the end result and the things that our heroes, protagonists or viewpoint characters go through might be essentially what Am was going through as he woke up and continues to go through. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Well, I think we could probably seg you into actually discussing the goddamn plot of this shit
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
So, Psycho, what is the general plot of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?
Basically,
Basically.
Oh, Am took her.
Are you-
All right. Geez, what is the plot of?
I was about to say, are you gathering thoughts, or is there a technical difficulty?
Line.
Okay. Very quickly, the plot is that these 5 humans are trapped in this subterranean complex housing this evil, angry computer, and they are just attempting to find something, anything, to make their lives worth soldiering on. They are unable to die. The computer has taken the ability of them to kill themselves, and he makes sure that they are tormented in new and interesting ways, as soon as he thinks of them. And the opening plot is that this group is going to go to the ice caves and find a stash of canned food, and several of them are desperate at the lure of just fruit punch and pineapple
Maraschino cherries,
cherries.
Or just plain a thing to do, honestly.
Just like the shitty stuff. Just to imagine how desperate these characters are, they're literally lusting after the shitty stuff in your grandma's pantry. It's like they want.
In my
these
mind,
goddamn
I
shitty
have
cherries.
to I describe it in my mind as Lord of the Rings, except for with canned food, because that's all they do is walk.
My
And it's a lot of walking.
My grandpa, when we had mandatory military service in Sweden, when my grandpa exited out of the military, he stole. It's a Swedish tradition that you nick as much as you can when you exit the military. He stole an entire not crate, larger than a crate, but entire stack of canned peaches. And they are military issue canned peaches, so they lasted for decades just normally. And my grandpa was obviously on the slightly older and stingier sort. He did live through the war times as a young lad, so he served us canned peaches with a little bit of whipped cream at every occasion for bloody forever. And
Oh my god.
when it was very fancy, he would take an after 8 mint and put it on top of the canned peaches, and then put it in the oven for a couple of minutes, and then serve whipped cream. And I almost imagined that these were not good peaches, but I almost imagined that whatever Am was offering them was not even quite as good as those bloody not very good canned peaches were.
They've been frozen in this ice cave for 109 years and probably even longer.
Yes.
So they're probably not expired, but just very stale, if not frozen.
Right. So going back to the plot,
Grandpa diversions aside.
yes, they have this idea, and Nimdok is the one that suggests that they can go and get this canned food, and they set off across miles and miles of subterranean caverns and corridors. And along the way, AM provides them the bare minimum of sustenance that they can get, and it's always disgusting. They mention worms. They mention something that tastes like
Boar urine.
boar urine. Yeah.
How do you know what boar urine tastes like?
That is a question we will never know.
I imagine that
They will just served it unquestionably at some point.
whenever I was reading this story and I was imagining the past tortures that Aeon put them through, I was imagining ranging from the world's shittiest Fear Factor host. In order to survive, you must drink this boar urine. Ooh. And he's like over enthusiastic, and everyone's like, I mean, all right, I guess if I have to do it. So I guess I don't know. Either it was my mind, but I always painted AM as just like ineffectual villain who just like knew he could get away with anything with these people, and that's why he was doing this. It was just for fun.
Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'm going to burn through this synopsis real quick, and then we can talk about individual scenes after. So on this journey through the complex, he provides them with terrible food. He sends monsters at them, torments them psychologically. He makes loud noises and just generally sort of assaults their senses. At one point, Benny makes an attempt to escape when he realizes that they are near the surface, and AM punishes his attempt by physically torturing him with light and sound that pours from his eyes and ultimately removes his eyes and blinds him. The group gets separated several times along this journey. The narrator gets knocked unconscious at one point and has sort of a vision of the computer messing with his brain directly, and sort of wonders about the nature of AM. But ultimately, the group reaches the ice caves all together, and they see the pile of canned goods, and they are filled with joy. And then the ending of A Twilight Zone happens, and there is no can opener. And they cannot they cannot get at this food that is so near to them. And so Benny, finally snapping completely, attacks Gorrister and starts to eat his face. And Ted realizes at that point that this is going to be their life forever. And he realizes the only way out is death. And so he grabs an icicle and stabs both Benny and Gorrister to death. Ellen sees him do this, and in the first moment of agency she has in the whole story, she stabs Nimdok and kills him. And then she and Ted have this moment of like staring at each other, and Ted finally runs at her and kills her too. And Ted is about to kill himself and complete his freedom for him and his companions, and AM stops him. And AM is unable to return dead bodies to life. He can apparently keep them alive forever, but he can't bring them back. And so now all of his rage and anger is focused on Ted. And to keep Ted from ever having the opportunity to defy AM again, he turns him into this amorphous flesh blob that is incapable of harming itself, barely able to move, and just constantly messes with his perception of time to, drive home his helplessness. All Ted can do is see and move slowly around, and he realizes that he is trapped in this situation forever. And the final line of the story is Ted's thought and the title, "I have no mouth and I must scream."
But instead, all I can do is blob around. Blop, blop, blop.
Blop,
I had
blop,
like
blop.
a sound effect in my head.
So, Harlan, what do you think you're going to call this story? The Aristocrats.
Wah,
Essentially.
wah.
Crickets.
Why is it that could not stop them at that moment, sir?
So
He's
when
more
we...
like-
It did happen over a really short period of time, wasn't it? Like it just.
Well, it was very quick, yes.
I think there was an implication that he was like allowing it, and it was like a moment of letting his guard down, something like that. Because now I can't remember it clearly. But
Ted thinks to himself that he only has this moment, and my only thought on how that could be is that perhaps in the past they have noticed a trend where AM would accomplish some massive feat of torment and then kind of go off by himself for a little masturbatory glee that he had found some new way to torment the humans. And so Ted, they've realized this, that after something really terrible, AM kind of goes away for a while, and Ted is like, okay, here's my chance.
That was kind of the feeling I got. Like AM was kind of in a gloating stance, like, look what I did to these fucks, and they just killed each other, like in just a handful of seconds, basically.
And actually, we had a discussion earlier before Candy Time, about why AM, who seems almost omnipotent, could not, bring them back to life or clone them or what have you. And my take on that was this dichotomy of AM was created by humans, and we are given proof in the story that he can essentially create biological material. He creates a giant monstrous bird, but
he creates food on occasion, even if it's really
right, like organic food. But if he were to resurrect these humans or clone them or create new ones, then he would essentially be repeating the sins of his makers.
That's a good point.
He like, the entire reason why he is doing this is just basically like a teenage girl saying, I never wanted to be born. The big speech that everyone remembers is him saying how much he hates humans just because he hates them. And that's the only emotion he's ever felt. He hates them for creating him, and he hates humans for using him as a tool, even when he was sentient, and just not giving any thought to the fact that he just created life. And over time, he just developed this hate for them.
This is a part where the game actually undermines the central thing, because in the game he actually does create sentient other humans and does actually torment them. But for whatever reason, that is not enough for his satisfaction. But he does do it, which actually undermines this line of thought, which is one of the rare occasions where the game actually is not perhaps better than the short story, in my opinion. Because it removes that dichotomy, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
I also think it might be a case of, in the story, of pure simple machine logic, that Anne is made for killing and causing suffering. He's a kill computer after all.
He was made to
Cold War. It might also be a case that Anne might not actually be suffering and have deep logical reasoning for why he torments these 5 people. It might just be a case of that he was programmed and made for killing and causing worldwide destruction, suffering, and if there's no one left, he has no more purpose. So you have to keep these 5 people alive to, perpetuate his purpose in life forever.
It's a good point, yeah. So, if these, he just has no purpose anymore. Yeah.
Like he would have no one left to harm. But so what does he get out of turning Ted into a blob? Is it just now he's tortured forever? He's just a blob.
Yeah.
So his creation is now constantly tortured just by his essence.
By doing that to Ted, it's like he's continuously fueling his need to exist, because it's torturing itself. It's just like a perpetual motion thing.
He's sulking now forever.
Yeah. Well, if I can't have fun, then neither can you. So
yeah.
And there's also a kind of a childlike sense of all of his toys were broken but one, so now this one must be, kept in the toy box.
He does.
Or kept in the toy box and gets the worst punishment.
M does have a very childish, immature way sometimes, for just the fact that the Nimdok thing comes off as extremely petty and childish. And so he's like, I'm gonna feed him beer. I'm gonna feed him beer, boar pee, and stuff. Sometimes suffering can just be very mature, childish by its nature, and causing suffering. But he does come off as somewhat childish in his glee, and the method he does it as well. So
he's an asshole.
Yeah. He is the author in some ways, I would argue.
He is an omnipresent toddler. Well,
you know what they say, kill your darlings. Ellison just took it really, really far.
Well, he is literally the author, because, like, in some way of seeing it is that Am is almost omnipotent, and so it's like, well, the author. So, like, yeah. I don't know if that's a valid or deep or falsely deep reading of it, but yeah.
This is something that I thought was interesting because I'm a giant nerd. Depending on the edition that you read, there are these little punch card tapes sort of acting as section breaks. And those actually have meaning. They are the little stripes of dots.
Yeah. Those are the candy dots that.
Yeah, those are the strips of candy dots. No, those are a
old way of coding computers.
Encoding
It turns out to send nudes.
Not even for computers; it's for teletype machines. Devices that use the telegraph system to send and decode messages much faster than a human could using Morse code. And they alternate. There's only 2 in use, and one says, "I think, therefore I am." And the other says "cogito ergo sum." So they are, yes, the same thing in English and Latin. Alternate.
It's the same thing in English and pretentiousness. Okay. So
Yeah.
I think unless we have anything else to talk about the actual story, we can start talking about the video game adaptation by I think Cyber Dreams.
I do actually have something came to my mind when we were talking about AM as a toddler, and also this connects sort of with the video game. Didn't someone say that Ellison voices AM in the video game?
Yeah.
He actually does a really good job at it, I think.
My take, kind of, is that AM, if he wrote this in, one night, and he was drunk, and he was probably unhappy, because Ellison was always unhappy, he was AM. He was, maybe these people may actually have been people that Ellison knew, and was like,
oh,
this
God,
guy.
don't sort of that.
Well, because there does happen in some stories. What was that one? The
really shitty stories.
Well, no, there's a famous one that the story where what's his name, Virgil gets taken down into the 7 levels.
Dante's Inferno.
Dante's Inferno.
Oh yeah.
In Dante's Inferno, he talks all about
Dante's Inferno, the first fan fiction. So
it's totally full of people.
He was really mad at a lot of people in the church when he wrote that.
Like one of the popes he had personal beef with was one of the people who suffered in hell and all that. So yeah, I get you.
There's a lot.
So I Have No Mouth is a 1967 disc book, basically.
I'm proposing that it is essentially Ellison's Inferno. That's my proposition here.
So like I said, if this existed today, it would be posted on Reddit and one of the weirder, thick stuff, and then it would probably get a moderate amount of upvotes, and also most of the characters would probably be My Little Ponies. So that makes a lot of sense. That it's just Ellison is totally the person who would just go on 4chan and just rant about stuff in R9K. Probably had no life.
Look,
Ellison
he would not
definitely
be alone
was
in
a
that.
contentious person.
Yes.
Look, he will not be the only science fiction author that will be hanging around on Reddit and be a really pathetic figure.
Oh, definitely not. There are definitely sci-fi and fantasy authors to this day who hang out on Reddit. So.
Bloody Heinlein would be a pathetic Reddit poster. Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
To talk a little bit about what an asshole Ellison was, he was pretty well known for being this kind of litigious jerk that would sue anybody for anything. He wrote a script for Star Trek in the same year he published I Have No Mouth, 1967. And the episode is actually acknowledged as being a fantastic episode. It's called The City on the Edge of Forever. However, Gene Roddenberry rewrote the script, and
he did. Okay.
Ellison did not like it, and he argued quite a lot, but he kept his name on it, which it's fairly common in Hollywood to use a pseudonym if you aren't happy with how your contribution to something is used. So like scriptwriters will use Cordwainer Bird to, let's say, remove themselves from scripts that they wrote that were then butchered by rewrites or editing.
Which also happened a lot on Star Trek. So it is notable that he kept his name on it. And it is one of the best regarded original series episodes. So
I didn't actually not know. I did actually not know that it actually was rewritten. I thought it was his original one.
Well, the original script and the modified script both won awards, so they were both considered good. But then, in 2009, so that's what 42 years after the episode.
You can do math better than me.
He sued CBS Paramount, saying he should get more stuff, get more of the
royalties.
receipts from merchandising, publishing, and income, basically retroactive to 1967. So he is like, he tried to renegotiate his contract 42 years after the fact and make it retroactive.
I remember reading the original script for that story, and I kind of liked it, but I didn't like the thought that Uhura had like this gigantic ape penis stuck in her forever. I thought that was a weird addition to the show. And Harlan Ellison was just like a very angry short man. Like there was a story I remember reading about him being on a panel with the guy who writes Penny Arcade and being not exactly happy about it, and he complained about it constantly throughout the panel, and like he made a comment directly to the guy like, I don't want to be here with this no talent young person, something like that.
I mean, it was Penny Arcade.
It was Penny Arcade, but at the same time, you're Harlan fucking Ellison. Choose your battles. You're a whatever the word is. You're a science fiction author who's like regarded as one of the best, even though you shouldn't be. And then you're like talking smack about Penny Arcade. That's like punching down. That's not something you should be worrying about.
He's a semi-respected niche fiction writer.
It would be weird if he wasn't angry, though.
Because he's Harlan Ellison. He's got to be mad.
He's an angry math nerd.
He honestly would probably not have gotten anyway if he was not an angry nerd.
Yeah.
Like, this entire story is written on, the back of his impotent anger one night he had.
Since we've already been there, I just want to make an extremely pedantic note. With regard to Benny and his transformation into an ape man, Ellison notes that his junk was increased in size like that of an ape.
Yeah.
That is so wrong.
Yeah. Humans have
they have the opposite.
Humans have much larger fetuses than apes. Of almost any stripe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously he hated gay people. So,
as a biologist and have studied human anatomy, I could actually be very picky and point out a lot of like actual factual errors and how stuff happens and suffering happens in the book. But whatever, it's AI magic.
He should have gone with a mollusk for the penis comparison. They have a very large penis.
He should have gone with he should have gone with a very specific kind of fly, which Latin name escapes me, who has a genitalia a third of its physical mass space and almost more than half of its actual weight mass.
Well, I mean, you hear all people talk about when they talk about kind of thing is like horses. So,
and he does compare it to a horse at one point.
Okay,
that is a good point. So, Psycho, that is the obvious comparison. Why gorilla? Why not horse penis?
Why did we think about this?
A gorilla has a penis. A gorilla has a penis 1 inch in length when it's erect.
Out of any science fiction author, I would also imagine Harlan Ellison to know exactly what a gorilla penis looks like, so I'm a bit disappointed that he made that mistake.
Science fiction authors are often, because they're physicists, so not very surprisingly lacking in the knowledge in the area of biology.
That is true, since they're
I
like
think
My-
one person.
nerds.
My assumption for that particular inaccuracy was simply that anytime people want to say a particular demographic is backwards or inferior or primitive, they compare them to apes. And so he just decided that, you know, the gay man has to be the sort of regressed individual of the group, but we also want to play up his like
just-
sexual perversion.
I actually just had
Not
a thought. Would there be like a part of that savagery, and I'm implying a bit of like racism on his part, the reason why
Maybe.
Ellen is extra fond of Benny?
Oh, fuck.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
That's horrible.
I like how long it took for us to come to that conclusion.
Also, there's the fact that they turned a homosexual man into just a walking penis for a woman,
Yeah.
which that's also horrible on its own merits. It's just, yeah.
And
So
you know, as someone you know heavily committed to another man, there's a line in this story where he comments. It's right after he first says that AM made his junk large, and Ted says, "But he had been quite gay." So the implication being that, you know, gay men don't enjoy large penises.
Hey, maybe that specific line would have been Harleson's like, oh no, gay totally means happy. Like, I don't like that word being co-opted by the degenerates, so it means happy in that case. But at the same time, I could imagine.
Isn't that sort of imposing things that may not? That I don't know that Harlan Ellison was that weird about the word gay.
I imagine he would be. He's Harlan Ellison.
My reading of it was simply that in Ellison's mind, being gay equals being an effeminate bottom. You know,
Yeah.
end of line.
Yeah, like a waste of having a gay person having a penis would be a waste, which is so confusing. I don't understand.
Or just a gay person is just simply confused and they need a giant giant godlike evil supercomputer to turn them the right way.
Though I did know people that would talk about how people, if they did not procreate, were a waste of human life. So maybe he was in that camp.
Yeah. Might have been an incel too, we don't know.
Maybe he was just
All
an ignorant
three.
asshole.
I think
We
It's
will
like-
never know.
it's not like was Harlan Ellison this horrible thing, it's Harlan Ellison was this horrible thing. That's like
But in what exact ways was he horrible?
any way,
That's the
any
key.
specific way. Was Harlan Ellison a racist? Yes. Was he a white supremacist?
When
Yes.
did he die?
Anti-Semitic? Probably. He died not soon enough. I think it was like 2012, maybe. When did he die?
Should we
I
have
hope
like
he's not still alive.
should we consider having a general like biography of the author?
Harlan
think-
Ellison is still alive, and also we could probably put that in.
Christ,
post
he's still
it.
alive.
He is still alive. He is.
All that anger, dude, it keeps you alive.
He's living on spite, which is exactly what Ted is doing at the end of the
He-
story. To bring
He,
it
by
back.
the way, is very intent in saying that he doesn't write science fiction. He writes speculative fiction. I just saw that.
He's like
Mm.
he's
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can put him in the same camp as the guy Terry Goodkin.
Terry Goodkind. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well,
like
he's also the guy who has repeatedly criticized film and television as being absolutely worthless, like top to bottom, and then has made a great deal of money writing scripts for TV.
he's
But
basically
he-
like Kurt Vonnegut, but an asshole.
But I'm actually quite shocked he actually went along and made a video game and actually voiced in it actually, and actually did a good
here's-
work at it.
Yeah, like I think we
mean,
could
he
go
did-
into the.
He did need money. There's that.
Yeah,
I
probably.
think we can go into the video game now. And one thing before we start talking about that, I think really important is that before they started making it, Cyber Dreams said, "Why is AM torturing these 5 specific people?" And apparently, Harlan Nelson went quiet for a very long time after being asked that, and they decided to base the entire game around why AM chose these 5 people specifically in order to torture them for however long they did.
Also,
And,
random trivia. I don't know if it actually was meant by the author, but 108 year is a 108 is a number with a very like great meaning in Buddhism.
Buddhism?
Stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Buddhism.
I don't have no clue if it actually was the
It's-
author's intent, but it's worth noting, I guess. Maybe.
Mm.
Here's some facts about him. He got fired from Disney for his first day for joking about making a pornographic title with Disney characters. So
Was that when
That's amazing.
was that when
Nice.
Walt was alive and around? Because I actually heard a story about.
apparently this was Roy O. Disney who did
Okay,
it. I don't know.
because I have heard like stories about like Walt walking in on employees joking about that, and then something like that, and then find a whole lot of them right away. Yeah, and then
This is off topic, but there was a story about a Disney employee making like a very short pornographic film featuring Minnie and Mickey and presenting it at like some tiny employee party.
yeah,
And Walt was like laughing and like clapping his hands and enjoying it. And they asked who did it. The employee stepped forward and he fired him on the spot.
yeah. I think
So I
that's
can
actually.
imagine.
I actually think that's a story I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
so
heard that one.
I can imagine that they're not very happy about that. No. So what are some other interesting Harlan Ellison facts? Does he have a Reddit
Oh.
account?
Here's a really fun one. In part of a dispute about fulfillment of a contract, he once sent 213 bricks to a publisher, postage due, followed by a gopher via fourth-class mail. So he picked the slowest possible class of mail to ensure that it was good and rotten by the time it got there.
Oh, wow.
Does he vape?
Sometimes you have to respect a complete asshole in the length they go.
That is a lot of spite.
Almost,
that's
I say.
quite a bit.
That's
This
why
is
he's
respectable.
still alive.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Lives on it.
He also has several cases of proven or alleged assault.
Wow.
Wow.
Really?
He supposedly assaulted a fellow author named Charles Platt at a banquet, at a Ward's banquet. Platt did not pursue legal action, and they eventually signed an agreement that they would not discuss it again or have any contact. So they sort of just settled, I guess. And then in 2006, he received a Nebula Award and acted very erratic. And apparently there's a video of this that I'm going to watch as soon as we're done here, where he sucked on a microphone and ultimately groped Connie Willis, who was hosting, grabbed her breast on stage. And apparently afterwards, he complained that Willis had refused to acknowledge his apology.
Harlan Ellison.
Sounds like he
Wow.
was high out of his mind.
It sounds like he was Harlan
Yeah,
Ellison.
probably.
Sounds like he was Harlan Ellison.
So this is another interesting story about him that is a little less awful, but I guess awful just as it's very Harlan-y. At the first AggieCon at Texas A&M University, he was invited as their guest of honor, and he described the university's Corps of Cadets as America's next generation of Nazis. And was like, that was it. Like, that kind of brought the whole thing to a stop. And at the next several AggieCons, they did not invite a guest of honor.
Shockingly.
Wait, Harlan Ellison is against Nazis?
He's Jewish and very anti-war. So, yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
it actually does smell a lot that he probably leaves anti-war throughout the short story as well. Like the entire premise is that, World War III kill computer. and
My
all
God,
that.
we found a connection back. grab this life rope that we may save ourselves from speculation.
Wait, no, you want let's keep talking about candy computers. I'm cutting the life rope right now. I need to go back to this candy diatribe.
Look, I am a master on segways. I were able to talk about my bloody grandfather's military nicking things at cascades.
But you do bring up a good point. I mean, the story is the anti-warness of it is just sort of kind of part of it, right? Like humans
not a
built
central
machines
thing.
for war, and those machines destroyed us. Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
such a basic part of it.
Oh yeah, it's not a
Yes.
central theme at all. It's just almost incidental to the story. Like, okay, why is
Yeah.
there AM? Well, I guess the Russians and Americans and Chinese.
It
wrote
was written at the not the height of the Cold War, but when it was almost about to go hot. So like that sort of stuff was very real in the minds of a lot of people.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's I think a lot of authors and things have a lot of meaning intent that the author didn't really consciously think. But the entire short story can also be very much read of like a lot of like science fiction and stories in general from this time as a lot of anxiety over the Cold War, like how it will end us and cause immense suffering and death and of all humanity and all that. Like the very technology threatens the entirety of mankind, and now in the story it has destroyed all mankind, but keeps the last one in eternal anxiety and torment, like anxiety that people were feeling about the Cold War at the time.
Yeah.
Like yeah,
I don't
if we
think-
keep
I don't-
this on,
I don't think it was a very conscious decision, but it's a thing that is very common for a lot of works from the Cold War times, that are general feeling of anxiety. At least bleaker stories, I mean. They could often be very likened to the anxiety people felt during the Cold War.
if we keep this unchecked, we'll eventually have giant killing computers. But at the same time, those are pretty rad. So
So I'm looking at this in the Wikipedia article. It's so many lawsuits he's been involved
okay,
in.
we're diving back down the Harlan Nelson hell pit. Let's go.
And
Well,
this is amazing to me. Apparently, those talk fields that I mentioned earlier were somehow garbled or messed up in every edition up until a collection of his stories in 1991. And in that collection, he says, for the first time anywhere, AM's talk fields appear correctly positioned, not garbled or inverted or mirror imaged as in all other versions. With everything we know about this guy, I find it really difficult to believe that there was never any lawsuit or contention about this messed up part of his story.
I tend to agree.
Have we covered the story and what we think about it and meaning and all of that in thoroughly enough for people? Or have people more things to say? I think.
We're at more than an hour. I dare say we're good to move on.
Yeah,
So,
I'm kind
okay.
of out of things to say about the story.
Let's talk about. I think we should talk about the Cyber Dreams video game because it has a lot more junk to get through.
Yeah.
Especially the characters are actually like not exactly 3D, but actually have depth and backstories.
I would.
Well, I mean, as long as we still have stuff to talk about for that stream.
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
I think we could just go like how the characters changed in the game, and then like just maybe like how well it was received, and then I think that would be it.
I think the story itself, in pretty much always, besides the one I mentioned earlier, is a better telling of the story. Even though it's almost not even a telling of the story in short story, but like our entire situation and themes and the characters and all that. It's better in almost all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Besides being buggy as shit.
Well, I don't care about the happy ending either.
And
but
also
whatever.
that I couldn't complete my version that I owned as a kid because it was a German version and it's uncompletable.
So going in the order we went last time, when we were talking about the characters, Gorister, if I remember correctly, in the Cyber Dreams version, was a trucker who had a mentally disabled wife.
Yes,
Mhm.
and a very unhealthy relationship with his mother.
With his in-laws. His in-laws, like, essentially, I don't know which way it went, but he was forced to put his wife into an asylum,
Yes,
and either his in-laws were like guilting him over that, and that guilt developed into actual self-hate.
I think the in-laws were also the ones responsible for putting her into the asylum, but then made him think that it was him.
Yeah, he was like telling them, they were telling him that he didn't truly love her if he did that to him. if he did that to her. And then each character in the game, there's 5 scenarios for each character, and it's one for each character, and they're all like little ironic hells with situations that they need to, with goals and situations that they need to do. So Gorster's was like very surreal. It's probably most surreal out of any character because it didn't have like a very concrete setting. He was in a Zeppelin powered by dying animals.
Yes.
Yeah, animals that were having the life force sucked out of them. He woke up without a heart, and his goal was to both get Zeppelin moving again and get his heart back. And he was hovering over this Route 66 gas station with a coyote, and he was like encountering his in-laws and his wife and
a coyote that was like the mythical Native American version of coyote, like a coyote god, essentially.
Yeah, the coyote god, and if I remember correctly,
the archetypal trickster.
Yes.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the coyote actually isn't connected to Am. It's a alien
It's a sub-program.
figure.
It's a sub-program of Am. They flex out how Am works a lot more in the game.
I do remember the coyote being actually directly opposed to Am.
Yeah, but he had several different sub-programs within him, like demons or the coyote, one of them, that were like have their own goals and stuff as well.
So, yeah, Gorsters
or were implied to be like the subparts of the Russian or Chinese AI parts of it that was fighting him.
Gorster's story ends with him finding his heart back and then either him sacrificing himself or sacrificing his own heart to get the Zeppelin moving, and that's how it ends. And then
he finds forgiveness for what he thought he did to his wife.
Yeah, and then Benny, I think, is next, right?
I think you can take in whatever order you want. Almost I think to get the correct ending, you need to take in a certain order, but there is some choice in which order you take. But whichever, yes.
Bloody Chill, do you remember Nimdok's scenario in the game?
Yes.
I haven't played the game, so
okay. Jeesh, have you played the game?
I have not, but it sounds like
played the game.
Okay, so Hutter, what is Nimdok's scenario in the
Nimdok,
game?
it's greatly expanded because he was an old Nazi doctor and colleague to Mengele himself, and he is put back at like the old. I don't remember if it's directly stated to be Auschwitz, but it's like one of the death camps where he was doing experiments back in the day. Nimdok is revealed to be a Jew himself, and suffering great guilt, and also having a hand in the creation of some of the stuff that Am is doing. So he's put in this labor camp and faced with like various situations.
Nazi propaganda.
Yes, Nazi propaganda and like situations. And the quick synopsis is that he to like find redemption, he needs to help the Jews and his fellow Jews to like get the mythical golem of his people activated to like free themselves from the Nazis and also kill himself with them. But Am doesn't let him die, but he finds some kind of redemption. And in the German version that I played, this part were incompletable because obviously
they didn't even add it. They didn't even add it, I think. So the game was just like not completable, right?
No, it actually was there, but it was actually there, which was odd because it was odd that he was there to begin with. But it was there, but you just couldn't like do certain stuff with the Nazis, and you could not like actually do the redemption ending for Nimdok because you can't have redemption for like a Nazi doctor. So like the true ending, the good ending, so to speak, as good as you could call it, was incompletable in the German copy of the game that I had.
I remember Nimdok's scenario being. It was probably one of my favorites because it was very clearly inspired by German expressionist films like.
I did replay it later.
Doctor.
But in my case, I don't quite remember how it was incompletable, but it was uncompletable in my youth.
So, Todicus,
yes.
I think Benny is next. Do you remember Benny's scenario from the game?
Yeah, Benny's scenario, his was, I think he stumbles upon this, like, little village that, where somebody gets chosen to be sacrificed, and, I, I want to say he gets, he kind of gets attached to this one family that has a little kid or something, and there's also some parallels, I think, because they kind of say that Benny was a soldier or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was a
Yes.
soldier
retcon
who
him a
bed
bit.
his comrades and then killed them when they frightened her.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah,
So I can't remember like when it kind of, I think it's kind of near the end where they kind of reveal, oh hey, the comrades that you killed, here are their graves, kind of sitting along. Because I think he tries to stop the lottery because he doesn't want the kid to be sacrificed, but I think he fails in that.
No, the mother.
the,
I
yeah,
I can't remember how he uncovered, like he finds the graves and stuff. It's
I
been
think
a bit
it's
since I played it.
It's
you
like
find
point
you
and
find the
click.
graves.
It's a point and click game, so some inane
Yeah,
pixel clicking.
I think you find the graves early on. They actually talk to you, and they're like, "Oh, don't you remember me?" And I think it's not like required, but you get good boy points by putting like a flower of love by each grave.
I
And
thought
then
that was for guaranteeing the good ending.
yeah, and then the good ending for Benny is just sacrificing yourself instead of this mutant kid who's going to be sacrificed.
Yep.
So, Psycho, I'm sure you have a lot to say about Ellen in the game. So let's hear your thoughts about that, and then I think that's
From what I remember, I don't remember how it actually ends or anything, but it was the fact that she was afraid of the color yellow,
yes.
and it turns out because she got raped in an elevator by somebody wearing a yellow coat or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I can't remember the
It was
stuff
set.
around that. It was there was
I think
I
it was
do remember there was like technology or whatever.
a pyramid
set-
thing.
Yeah, it was set in like an Egyptian pyramid.
Yeah.
But since she was like an IT programmer, I think. So a lot of her set dressing was involved around computers and her own knowledge about them, which I think was very actually cool. And they clarified Ellen's race. She was a black woman voiced by a black voice actress who was actually very not stereotypical with the role, which I appreciated.
All of
So I think
the
Ellen,
voice actors were quite good, in my opinion.
yeah, out of everyone, I think Ellen got the best treatment from being just a useless meat sack to actually having agency and wanting to do stuff and actually having a plot that tied into sex and why it can be bad instead of just, oh, I like sex, fuck me.
And actually,
Pretty much.
and besides, Nimdok actually has the most actual backstory connection with Am.
Yeah. And I think, and like I said early on, Ted's backstory is not changed at all. His personality hasn't changed. He is an asshole through and through. He is a con man. And in the story, his plot involves him in a castle with demons and angels wanting to fuck Ellen, who is sick. It's not Ellen exactly. It's like a construct or something, but
I
he
think
wants to fuck.
Yep, it was in a medieval castle where his love Ellen is apparently slowly dying due to a spell cast on her by her wicked stepmother.
there's a witch somewhere and demons and
Of course.
yeah,
It's.
those
I think there's like
sub-programs.
you can have sex 3 times in that. Of course, it's all fade to black, but he is the only character in the game who actually has sex scenes, and it's not.
He's still a piece of shit, but I do think that especially if you go for the full good ending, he's somewhat like, I won't say heart of gold, but like, not completely as much
of his way.
Yeah, he's not as complete of a piece of shit as he is in the short story. But, marginally less so.
Sadly, because this is not like a visual format, you cannot watch us playing the game as of yet. I think we'll have a stream later on or a video series of us playing the game and talking more about why Harlan Ellison is a giant dick. So there's that to look forward to.
Yay.
I think. But
Jeesh, did you want to talk about, I guess if we're kind of finishing up here, what we can expect from later episodes, or you guys on structure?
Well, first off, you can expect a more structured episode because we just kind of like did this ad hoc. I think
Absolutely.
Well, one thing I do want to ask everyone before we wrap off is what their favorite thing from the actual text of the novel was. Like going down the line, like Bloody Chill. What was your favorite thing in the actual short story?
My favorite thing was AM telling Ted how much he hated him, like how hate was like printed on every unit of his circuits and all that. Like, I just remember laughing when I read that and going,
yes, and either I or somebody else will record that line and have it as a bumper for this recording.
Can you have like Todicus say it? I think Todicus' voice would work for it.
You said that you wanted me to say something like some Bible quote or whatever.
It's like a quote that I actually really liked, and I think would work well as like the boilerplate. But I think Todicus saying, "I have no mouth and I hate you so much, humankind," would work very well.
It's
Hutter.
teeny tiny.
Yeah, I think you should voice AM from now on.
Okay.
Hutter, our
Yes.
favorite vaguely European guest for this episode. What is your favorite moment from the text of "I have no mouth and I must scream"?
Guest? I plan to be a permanent fixture here. Anyways.
Well, we'll have to go back to We'll have to get back to corporate about that because you're vaguely ethnic and we can't allow that.
Oh man, rejected everywhere. Mine is actually rather personal. I did mention earlier that to me the story, at least a certain part of it, has a little bit more personal feeling to it because I am actually a little bit physically disabled myself and have sporadic episodes of where essentially my self is outside of myself, so essentially part of horror, and therefore some of the descriptions in the story actually do hit me home at times of
the scenes where he was talking about being stuck with sort of AM's consciousness when there was the travel, where it kind of felt like he was there was a bit of out of bodiness to it. I kind of remember those.
Yeah, kinda, but also more like the final thoughts of how Am feel like it's like a hollow core and like dead stuff. So I won't really go into big details into it because we don't need to be like that personal, but like a certain part of novel of the writing of the novels actually hits us more at home. So while we have talked about how adjective filled and hammy the novel is at some times, it actually did hit home at some point, harder for me than others. But I also too found some comedy in some of the overuse of adjectives and bombasticness that the author chose to use.
So this just in, Hutter is actually Am. We'll keep you posted. If he takes control of me, Bloody Chill, Geesh, Psycho, and Todicus, we'll let you know.
Hate. I don't know the full quote by heart. Sorry.
It's fine.
Hate.
Geesh boy, what is your favorite moment about I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream? Besides you being a gay man lusting over Benny's giant wing.
Damn it! Why did you have to take that away from me? No, my favorite part is absolutely the opening scene of the story, in which they come across the fake dead body of Gorister hanging up in the air with its throat slit from ear to ear. I think it's a really, for all the shit we've given Ellison, I think it is a masterful establishment of the setting and the key players and just the overall tone of the story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's going off that. My favorite thing of the story was these 5 lines after I think a tornado happened, but it was just these 5-sentence long lines and we passed through the cavern of rats, and we pass through the path of boiling steam, and we pass through the country of the blind, and we pass through the slough of despond, and we pass through the vale of tears. And that's all the description you get of those legs of the journey. And I think that's all you really need to know, because at some points you don't really need to describe stuff. You just need to give your readers this vague sense of what it is, and then their mind will fill in the rest. And oftentimes it's often more horrible than what you could ever describe. I think I would honestly enjoy a story a lot more, and Harlan Ellenson's writing a lot more if he just use that tactic more often instead of just trying to describe stuff and hanging it in front of your head and saying, "Ooh, how spooky is this?"
Laid off that. You say if he laid off the adjectives a little bit more.
Yeah, if he just let you imagine your own stuff and let it fester in your mind, that would actually be more horrible and horrifying than just describing everything outright and trying to tell you to feel scared. And Psycho, what do you think is your favorite thing about the story?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of like the beginning. It was alright. I mean,
I can't imagine you enjoying the story that much, so it's fine.
I have a lot of issues with anger and whatnot, so I guess I can relate to the whole thing overall, especially since I was a writer, or at least I pretended to be a writer for a little bit, and that's kind of the cathartic thing that I would do, is just fuck these guys.
So you're identifying with the fact, with the possibility that Blade Chill laid out that this was a hate fic.
Oh yeah, I think so. Just because that's the way I would have done it.
You would have distanced yourself from it. No, it's not me killing these people. It's just some disembodied voice.
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's therapeutic, right?
It is. I can imagine. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm quitting smoking, so.
So you could okay.
So yeah, pretty much, yeah. I think he was quitting smoking when he wrote this.
He passed. A very attractive woman passed him by, and didn't pick up on his asking for a date, and he furiously went home and wrote this a very impotent anger.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it, but I think he has a lot more than just that, because he's really angry at poor Benny just because he's good looking.
And he's getting it on.
Yeah.
And he has a gigantic wang.
Stupid good-looking gay man not getting on with me.
Looking at a gorilla, man, I want that to happen to me.
Okay.
So Tadicus will be our last here.
What is your favorite thing about the story?
Honestly, I kind of like the opposite of, I know he uses a lot of adjectives and he describes things, but I kind of like how he's so descriptive. He's this is not going to be fun, and you're not going to find it, it's, I don't know, it's it kind of, when I first read it, it kind of made me feel nauseous. Just from some of the descriptions and just how some things played out, especially with Benny. It was just oh my gosh. So it would be nice if he did kind of leave more stuff to the imagination, but I feel like he did a pretty alright job with kind of setting up how it's gonna be this is not gonna be a very comfortable story at all.
This ain't your kids' cupcakes.
Yeah. If you're
dreadful
looking
in the true sense of the word, it fills you with dread.
Yes.
When I was reading the story, it just it didn't really dreadful me. I don't know, but it just made me confused and anxious, because I was there's a million. When I was reading the story, there was a million things going around in my actual life, and I was just trying to read it as quick as possible. I was no, I need to go back and read this part. I need to figure out this. I guess that also helped with me reading the story, because I can imagine pretty much anyone in that situation just not knowing what's going to happen, having this fear, this anxiety in their eyes and their mind, and just being very confused about everything. So I can get that, yeah.
So, and It's really weird because playing the game first and then going back and reading it, it's kind of I think the game did pretty alright, kind of filling in its own kind of stories for everybody. Because there's not a lot of backstories. You're just like, here's some people getting tortured by this giant angry candy-filled computer, and we don't know why, but it's happening.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
There's nothing you can do, and there's nothing anybody in that world can do. It's just
everyone else is
completely hopeless.
Well, I mean, my first take on it was, I'd just kill myself. And, I mean, that's exactly where they head. So.
Yep, basically.
But it took them 109 years to get to around to that point.
Yeah.
They worked hard on that.
Or actually get an opportunity to do it. I do think they mentioned that they tried to do it before, but hadn't let them. And it was not before this moment that his, attention lapsed enough so they actually could try it. Or, well, Ted could try it.
Actually, now that I think about it, I think Am not letting anyone kill themselves. It's not a plot point, but it's mentioned a couple times in the game. And, like, I think Nimdok's scenario starts like, I will give you the best thing I can give you and the opportunity to kill yourself. Which is,
in the game, they are not, like, allowed to. They must go, like, we didn't go through the entire plot of the game, but it's, like, something where the Chinese and Russian, like, parts of the old, like, supercomputers are trying to rebel against the main AM part and are guiding the protagonists to, like, get some AI coding program things from within their own scenarios. So when everyone done the scenarios, they, like, come out and, like, help me get to AM's central processing place that is very, like, Freudian structured, and, like, sabotage AM, which also allows them to give them the moment to kill themselves as well. So, like, the good ending is that they shut down not just AM, but, like, all of the supercomputers, kill themselves, and also wake up the people that are inescapably stored in cold cryosleep on the moon.
Oh yeah, there's also that. Forget about that.
Yeah, there are people on the moon.
I think that's about it, unless anyone else has any points about Candy they want to bring up, or how much Harlan Nelson fucking sucks.
Yeah, okay.
I can bring up.
Let's wind this down.
Let's wrap it.
I can actually bring up that
down.
I have a Candy thing to bring up. I don't even like. I don't even. Never mind. Don't joke.
Okay. There's some YouTube videos I want to watch in the F-Arts channel, and Audacity is telling me I only have 20 hours of recording space left.
Oh,
so
fuck.
Clearly we've got to finish this up.
All right.
Just some procedural things before we end. In the next few minutes, I'm going to be posting a doodle in the F-Arts channel soliciting people's best times over the course of a week. And moving forward, we're going to try to have these meetings once a week, same day, same time, make it nice and regular. And we're also going to try to structure it a little bit more. The vote for the next book we're going to be doing is already up. It's in the pins. Go vote. I will be closing the doodle for times Sunday at midnight EST. And we'll be closing the vote for the second book sometime after that. Or maybe right then. We'll play it by ear.
Preferably we should close the vote
Sounds
on the book
good.
as possible.
Where are we at? What about the closing for the podcast? Like,
And also the intro for the podcast we have yet to do.
I think we could just stop recording and then do those separate, so it's not as clogged up.
Mm.
All right.
I still haven't eaten dinner, and it's now 9 p.m., so I need some time away from the computer.
I
also
need to
need
eat food
food.
too. So
I'm
we
hungry.
can, like, group up in, like, an hour or so, and then just do those really quick, knock those out.
It is 3 a.m. here.
Jesus Christ, dude, go to sleep.
Have a
Well,
good night.
well, I would need to do my introductions sooner than in an hour then.
Well, it's going to be at least a couple of days before we get anything like fully edited, so we will have time in the coming days to handle things.
Yes.
So for now, I will say thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of this. I apologize for difficulties, both technical and procedural, but we're going to work to make it a better and more enjoyable thing. And that said, I think we all had some fun here tonight anyway.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
aside from the structure, everything went well. I just like some people cutting people off. I think we cut off Psycho Kitten and Todicus a lot, which I was actually pretty.
Yeah, I apologize
I'm sorry.
because
I'm sorry
I'm
about
aware
that.
that
It's
I am
okay, I'm used
responsible.
to it.
No, you shouldn't be. We should fix that.
We should
I
really
agree.
think that.
I-
Quiet
and-
voice, so
I think.
We'll fix it in post.
We
Fix
should-
it in
Yeah,
post.
structure stuff. We can arrange the structure stuff around too. I think because that's a miracle of editing. We don't have to show them what the chaos inspired here tonight.
Mm.
Like,
But yeah,
I think we could like the
Okay.
the Harlan Ellison disc stuff can go.
Night, Geesh. Have a good night.
I was going to
Guys,
say,
bye, dude.
I'm going to stop the recording now.
good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Love you.
Bye bye.
Good night.
I love you, Geesh.
Good night.
Okay.
And I will be
Anyway.
around. I will be around to say my name and everything else you want me to do in my weirdo accent some other time. And recording.